So when I worked at IBM and I worked at PwC, I ran a data management consulting firm there. We used to get a lot of requests to come in and help them with sourcing strategies. I'm like, well, what's the problem? They go, we don't know how much money we're spending with IBM. It's because we made 5 acquisitions. We all have these different vendor masters. We all set up the same name of the vendor differently across multiple. And we just don't understand. Like we got a question from one of our investors, how much money do you spend with this vendor? We don't know because we looked at the vendor records across the 5 acquisitions we made, and it's listed
Yeah.
20 times, and we don't know.
Can you imagine being the CFO saying, I can't tell you how much we're spending. I'll just make it an example. Coke. Is it Coca-Cola? Is
Yeah,
it Coca-Cola Company? How much you spending on soda at the company? Just making this up. I don't know.
yeah. That's
You
me
know,
with
we got
IBM. You find I
machines in every break room, but we give it away. We don't even know. It's just there's a guy that comes in and puts it in. We don't know.
Yeah,
And then you've seen these words too. They use, when they don't know, the word is, it's immaterial.
yeah, yeah.
When I was in public accounting, I remember it was like a billion here, a billion there, then it would add up to real money at one point. Whenever they got stuck or there was a challenge, it immediately fell into the immaterial box. And no one ever told you what the dollar threshold or percentage threshold was. It was just with the partner would go, oh, that's immaterial. And you'd look at him like, dude, you're just going along with the flow here.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
immateriality is their assessment of what they think a jury is to sway an investor's decision one way or the other, if it was right or wrong, right? That's the amount that
Oh man,
estimate decision will
you're
be
not wrong.
made, right? So
Yeah, you're not wrong. So then, with some of the tools that we're all familiar with, things like Oracle, EPM, Hyperion, Power BI, Tableau, even OneStream, they alone as a product aren't capable of solving your underlying metadata, master data issues. They're essentially might even bring them to light. Would that be a correct assessment?
yeah, that's true. A lot of times, if a company is myopic focused on just an EPM or an ERP system, and that's all they want, and they're going to implement it, a lot of times, like trying to bring the data sources that they need to do the reporting and to maintain transactions day to day. But a lot of
Hmm.
times, like these projects expose what the real problem is around the data, which
Yeah.
necessitates somebody to say, well, what do we do then? And what's the next thing that we can do out there? Which typically kind of moves into a master data management solution.
And I would imagine some of these big firms not mentioning that because they're just trying to get a deal sold. So they know that the client's eventually going to get snake bit on this and there'll be a big change order.
Yeah, I've worked for them too. The software companies that are out there, it's, get the deal you can today and figure out the deal we can do tomorrow. So if
Yeah.
what their appetite is, let's sell them this. And if there is a problem during implementation, we can gives us an opportunity to sell them the next thing tomorrow. But that's not a very eloquent way to like step through the logic of a problem to make the ultimate end result be what you want it to be, right? That's kind of a
Yeah.
little software tactic which is another thing I advise on when I advise, my clients on how to actually engage with these software vendors, and who has the best alignment of products and capabilities, and then what else do they have, and what are going to be the shortfalls of their solution around data specifically, and what are the challenges do I see they're going to be facing as they roll this out based on how they want to contract and what they want to buy.
I think from an advisory standpoint, there's a lot of value to that because I was selling software. The CFO or the controller, whoever invited you in, was like, "Oh, we got the Gartner list. You're on the list. Come on in and talk." In the meantime, they didn't know what they were buying, and the IT guys didn't advise them or have the capability to advise them. There's some unforeseen expenses that you're unaware of. Yes, this costs a lot of money, but obviously, it's going to cost less than the manual effort the way you do it right now, so it's worth it. But, don't get surprised if it's going to be a little bit of a cost for some things that you weren't aware of beyond user numbers. And it's just how it really works. But getting someone like you to tell them the truth, and the software guys, you're probably screaming, you can't handle the truth like that actor, right?
Yeah.
Um, you're the guy say, look, this he's not lying. He's just not telling you everything because there's pieces here that are going to come up.
I can give you a practical example of that. I'm not going to name any of the companies I work for, but like one software company may have a separate master data management solution, and then their EPM that does all their close consolidation, fp&a, everything, right? And what a client really needs. But they're
Yes.
competing against a competitor that doesn't have that, and tells the client that, oh, when you go with this other one, you need to buy the data piece separate, where we give you it as part of the application. Well, that's comparing oranges to apples and what people need, and it's kind of disingenuous of the first company that has the MDM solution that is the right answer to give them. Will kind of leave that off the table, knowing that the other competitor company is going to be saying that it's going to be more expensive because of X, Y, and Z, right? There's a little ingenuity out how the sales tactics work with these vendors, which
Yeah.
is why I try to step in and I give the right answer every single time because I'm agnostic, right? I work for
You're working for that client.
you,
Yeah,
so I know all the
that's your client.
tactics to how it goes on out there. But really, at the end of the day, the data piece for these vendors actually can become expensive, and if companies are down to how much am I going to pay, get 80% from both vendors, what we've seen, what the evaluation team has seen, why don't I just go with the cheaper one? A lot of times there's missing information, and it's all usually around the master data management.
I think there's also some trickery out there where they'll say, "Oh, it's included," but then there's a small line at the bottom that says, "But for X number of records,"
Yeah,
and then we're going to whack you for another license on another server
true.
that you're going to have to then go ahead and migrate all your stuff over to. And then there's other vendors who have some MDM solution built into the product. What they leave out is, oh, well, if you start rolling this into supply chain and operations, all those people have to be users now.
Hmm.
So we're going to get you coming and going from a licensing standpoint. We're really not telling you that, you got to really add up what it really costs to look after your data because all these dreams of AI and everything else, if you don't have good master data management processes and your data is good, those systems just aren't ever going to work.
Yeah, and the master data management piece of the companies that do offer it is sort of becoming kind of commoditized right now, I think. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
That was always the big ticket item as part of the big end-to-end platform purchase that they were trying to do. That's kind of the big elephant that was pitched as you need this, it's expensive. Um, and I think like what you offer, what you guys offer with masterful data and the whole construct and the easy to scale and the price points are that's going to be where I think the market's going to go around master data management. I think it's so commoditized right now.
And I think that it's very disruptive because, as you mentioned, masterful data. And one of our sponsors, by the way, they gave us free hats. Their software is free.
Yeah, I know.
So comparing to a multi-million-dollar licensing deal with one of the vendors fill in the blank, right? That's on the Gartner chart. How are you going to explain to the CFO or the CIO or anybody in charge that you just wasted a couple $1 million on software when you could have done it for free? And it's not open source software, it's real software. It's just a different business model. And I think that definitely going to be a lot of disruption in that market because either the rest of them are going to have to give it away for free or they're going to lose a lot of accounts to Masterful Data.
I agree. And what it does is um, change agent within the finance organization that otherwise wouldn't have a voice. Bringing in one of the bigger name vendors at, like, I don't know, $1 or $2 million a pop to bring this in and test it or even buy it.
Sure.
That's
Yeah.
gonna be easy for like a change agent like this. On the next project, why don't we bring in something free, right? We'll bring in something like Masterful Data for free, and we'll just test it out.
Yeah.
We'll set up some structures in the project and see how it works.
And how many times you're on a project where the grand thing is like, oh, we're going to do this on an enterprise level. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be everywhere. And they go broke once they get through the Office of Finance
Yeah.
and the project stops.
Yep.
So the supply chain folks, the ops folks, they don't have a master data management product. They're still blowing through resources and headcount to get work done. People are making mistakes, getting fired because they make mistakes, not properly armed to even defend themselves against getting fired for making mistakes. And, it's avoidable problem. You can just use free software for the whole
I
thing.
agree.
And yeah, of course you're going to have some advisory and consulting, but grow up. That's the world. You have to pay somebody, right?
Yeah.
And if there's support contract along with like Masterful Data will charge for support, but only if you ask for it and you order it, and you get to decide how much that's going to be, not Masterful Data. So it's extremely disruptive in that market,
Yeah.
and it will be interesting to see how that all goes. But I do think there's going to be massive change there, especially with AI driving and everything. They're going to quickly find out that these AI aspirations will not happen unless the master data and metadata is squared up.
You're right. I mean, there's nothing like a data project to show you the range of capabilities and benefits you can achieve from AI until you know your data. How about you can do with AI unless your data's right?
Let's take a quick break to mention Masterful Data, who is our sponsor for this episode. Masterful Data provides a no excuse path to accurate reporting and analytics you can trust because the software is free regardless of record counts or users. So it's an honest product that will automate the dangerous and janitorial task of reconciling changes in hierarchies, accounts, and dimensions that cause havoc to your quest to provide accurate reporting. On top of making accurate reporting possible, Masterful Data can help you retool and renovate your career while at the same time saving your company millions of dollars per year in labor, as well as protecting your CFO from making bad decisions based on bad data and obsolete processes. Get Masterful Data or go work someplace that already uses Masterful Data so you can protect yourself, stop being a data janitor, and achieve great things. And we say to all these analysts and administrators and these people who've been beaten down that, oh, you're not a decision maker, has to bubble up, IT comes to us with all ideas. Man, you better man or woman up quick and get yourself sorted, because just to defend yourself here, and how else are you going to get promoted if you're busy reconciling data for I don't even know how many hours a week, maybe conservatively at 16 hours a week.
Yeah.
You're never going to get the skills to get promoted or get a better job. You're just like some donkey tied to a fence that they whip every day. You're done.
Hmm.
Your parents didn't have high aspirations for you after paying for college for you to sit there and do that. It's basically you didn't even need to go to college to do that. And as soon as they can outsource you someplace cheaper, you're gone.
Yeah.
Because we both know there's plenty of really smart people in this world who work for very little amounts of money.
Yep.
You can't beat that. You know, the same as the big vendors can't beat free software. It's a change in the environment. You're either on the bus or you're getting run over by the bus.
Hmm.
That's pretty much how it goes. I heard that quote. So I'm stealing a lot of quotes today.
The quote master.
The keeper of quotes. Yeah. So, Dean, you've led a lot of these projects before. How do you help finance and operations people get CFOs and CIOs to even care about this issue and then approve a pilot or a project or even the process of looking at a software tool?
Well, leadership and finance care about making money, and you make money by either finding new revenue opportunities within your business through better insights of what you're doing and better correlation of why customers are buying what your services and products are. And the second thing, you get better margins by reducing costs, right? And your cost
Sure.
structure, there's, the biggest component in most companies, non-manufacturing companies, will be personnel costs to actually help deliver the service, right? So when you look at any process, and I'm most of the times I'm focused on the finance processes. You try to look at what is the effort and the headcount and the money you're paying people to do, and what are they doing, and what value do you get from it?
You gave me an example about this. I'm going to show right now if that's okay with you, okay?
Mhm.
Is it okay if I put that on there?
Sure.
There you go, Dean. Yeah, no, as you're describing this, you helped me remember that you took me through this and you got a very valuable slide here.
Yeah. So this is mostly around cost reduction. Take a look at end-to-end process, because a lot of these processes in finance will have a calendar of different tasks that have to be completed on different dates. When do they have to deliver? What are the dependencies? What throughout the process, and what's the end result? And so when you take a look at it, you can start looking at the people that are involved in the process, and then pricing out what is the cost. What is the cost for you to close your books and report every single quarter? What does it cost you every single month? Whatever it is, there's a human element and a cost element from people being involved. If you want to look at a cost reduction play and a new piece of software that's going to help you with that, this isn't a typical analysis that I would go. But there's a second piece of this. Like this is hard quantitative value that you're getting from a piece of software based on assumptions, commonly agreed assumptions that you come up with that you feed into this type of a model. But then you have to take a look at if you freed up 4.5 out of 10 FTEs that typically take the process, what are those 4.5 FTEs going to be doing? They're smart people, and if they have better data, they're probably going to be diving deeper in reports, finding new opportunities, working better with the other constituencies in the business, maybe on the sales side, on the human resource side, on the operations side. They're going to be you're going to be able to free up people outside of these mundane, boring processes, and they're going to be able to go out and probably find even additional opportunities around cost reduction, better efficiency, incremental revenue opportunities that weren't thought of before. So that's really the value. The hard value that you can get is reducing the headcount, the costs within the process. The soft costs are what you can do when you free these people up and how they can benefit your business.
Which brings me to another soft cost that a lot of finance folks that try to justify projects completely forget is the turnover dividend.
Yeah,
So when I say that, I mean, 15 to 20% of a finance department will quit every year. Just the fact of life, especially if they're doing boring work, can't get promoted. Lots of reasons people leave companies. But when they do go, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to hire another person if you're able to get the people left to do more work because they have automation that allows them to get more done with less headcount. Or you can hire different kind of people with different kinds of skills you otherwise couldn't afford before, but you know you need.
mhm.
You could kind of change up the ecosystem of the talent pool you have in your organization just based on people leaving and then making decisions about, okay, since they're gone, that work they were doing was really boring. We're sorry to lose them, but they're gone, and I know why they're gone. I would quit too, right?
Mhm.
But now that we have that problem conquered, when we hire the next person, what are we really looking for? Somebody who have awesome skills and something we never had the time to analyze in the first place.
A practical example would be get efficiencies within the process. Maybe there's turnover. People want to leave, or there's attrition that you have. Now your process costs less to perform every month or every quarter, every year. And now the additional money that you save, yeah, go out and buy a data scientist to dig into the data deeper and find new insights.
True. I mean, the way things are with the introduction of AI and all that, the components of who is in a company in terms of the type of people working there, I think is going to go through a lot of change.
I agree. So
As much as a sports team swaps out players every year, companies have to do the same thing because there's different skills required for different times, and these times are very different. And there's, I think, an explosive change in terms of the kind of work people are doing that's not as drudgery oriented, and you're going to get a lot more creativity out of people if you manage them properly and get them the right tools.
agreed. I would agree with that.
And then the other thing, as you brought up, you have to speak the language of money when it comes to CFOs and CIOs. They don't care about your work life balance or your pain or your stress. They earn their share by surviving a lot of pain and stress.
All right.
They don't care if you're suffering. That means nothing. They might put on a smile once in a while, but they don't mean it. But if you could turn around and save them money, they can calculate their bonus based on what you're telling them. You're going to have their full attention, especially if you could protect them as well. Because if the reporting's wrong, they don't fire the IT guys. They go after the financial leadership and the downstream people who did the delivery of that wrong reporting and analytics.
You bring up a very good point, Jim, because when you look at companies that want to move into a more mature data management philosophy or approach, the business should always own that project. They're the ones who are
Right.
going to get blamed for the reports. They're the ones that understand the data and what they need the best. That's not saying that IT shouldn't be a part of it. I mean, IT is very good at doing things like setup and maybe managing security,
Sure.
managing, but finance and the business should definitely own and administer that end-to-end process.
I think the finance folks have to really just understand that the IT people are the doers. The decision makers and the people who initiate change and come up with things that they need taken care of are going to be the finance, supply chain, and ops
Right.
people. I think if you turn around, you leave it to the IT guys to bring up something that's in the marketplace right now. The finance guys and the supply chain guys are all going to get what they call doged pretty quickly. Because I promise you, there's a boatload of guys out there who think they could run the universe. They're eyeballing the finance and supply chain people and saying, if I get rid of all of them and jam in some product, they won't have to be here anymore. And they truly don't even understand the process, nor a lot of what work those people do every day.
Right.
I think it's incumbent and critical that the finance people take control of this and really, really manage down to the IT guys to get what they want. As you said, IT is great at putting things up, but you have to tell them what to do.
Right. And a lot of times they may have a bias because, IT is trying to protect bench, the people that are on the bench and not playing in the game. They're trying to protect their bench. Understanding those skills and maybe being having a bias towards a vendor because those people already have those skills, so they're less willing to change to something better. They're looking at keeping their people busy on projects. We have these skills, and that's what we got to go with then. And that's not necessarily always the right answer. That's why
Right.
finance and business have to own these type of projects. They're the users of them. You don't have to know all the technical details about the project,
No.
about the product that they're going to acquire, but they have to know what's going to deliver them at the end of the day and be heavily involved, and then own it once it goes in.
I completely agree. And I think the other thing, too, that the finance people have to understand that most innovation is going to come from smaller companies.
Mhm.
Because of the interoperability of software right now, the whole myth that you're going to buy from one big mega vendor and they're going to take care of everything for you, as we say in New Jersey, they'll take care of you, all right. Not going to end well, though, right? They're going to empty your wallet and shake you upside down, and they're going to have you on their paradigm, which this doesn't match either your business model or your financial capability of continuing to stay in business. And the IT folks, they've been decimated over the years. I mean, you look at all the work that's gone offshore, there's hardly any of them left. And in most companies, perhaps rightfully so, maybe it's political, I don't know how to say this, but honestly, they're perceived as vendors. You either replace them or keep them, like any other vendor,
Oh, you
right?
do.
That's why.
When you talk to with the CIO's group or anybody in the CIO's group, as a consultant or even a software vendor, if you go into the business and you work with them and they know what they need, it's kind of easy to support them. But if you go into IT, a lot of times they're like, don't talk to my customers, my internal customers. You let me know how this software works so I can go there and maybe I can get you in if it's what they want. And I'm just like, well, this is like extra stuff in the manufacturing process that we don't need.
This is an attempt to bamboozle the people they support, and it's just wrong. I just hope that the finance and the supply chain business people really get it, that they have to take care of themselves. The IT guys you may get angels working for you, but it's also just as likely that they have a vested interest in looking after their own future and that of a bloated team. I remember back when I was working in consulting, is you'd mention a business problem and it'd be discussed, and there'd be some IT guy in the room would say, "Oh, we can make that." Like, no, you can't. You know, you're not a software company. You're a support unit for a manufacturing company that is not a software company. Therefore, you've no business making software. That's not your line of business. And then you're going to go ahead and impose the cost of maintaining that product on your company forever.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like you're giving the company a rash they can never get rid of because now they're dependent on whatever monstrosity you built. And frankly, if you were a really good IT guy, you'd be working at a software company, not at a manufacturing company, because they pay way better,
Yeah.
just so we know, right?
Correct.
So it was just like shake my head, go, oh man, don't say that. Please don't say that. But they do it. Nonetheless, they do it. Dean, it's been awesome to continue our discussion, but that ends another episode. Don't worry, because we have more, and don't forget to subscribe. I want to thank Dean Curtin for joining me today. I also want to make it easy to get in touch with Dean. Dean's skills and experience are essential to both lower costs, and his experience more than pays for itself based on his ability to help clients avoid expensive mistakes. Lots of companies try to do things on their own, but that usually ends as well as home dentistry. It often costs less to hire help. I hope you all contact Dean when it comes to financial systems advice, best practices, and see him as an extension to your financial team. Thank you. Join us on the next episode. So